Okay, welcome everybody. Hi, I'm Laura. I run operations at Auggie. I'm so excited to be here with you today for this important conversation, why change feels hard, understanding attachment and transitions in childhood. Change is part of life, but for young children, even small transitions can feel really big. I have two toddlers at home, and as a parent, I feel like understanding how attachment works and how my kids are like processing things can make a huge difference. So today we've brought together two incredible experts to help us unpack this, sharing the science behind attachment and real-world strategies for navigating transitions with compassion and confidence. So I will kick things off by introducing our panelists. We have Dr. Mona and Alyssa Campbell. So Dr. Mona, I will start with you.
Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for having me, Augie. I am Dr. Mona Amin, a pediatrician, IBCLC, and founder of Peds Doc Talk, and a mom of two. I have a 5-year-old and a 22-month-old today. So through my clinical work and online platform, Peds Doc Talk, I help parents navigate child health and development with confidence, cutting through the noise and misinformation to make parenting just a little less overwhelming. And my mission is to help parents raise confident, resilient children while fostering mindful parenting. So, nurturing a healthy relationship with food, emotions, and self worth from the beginning, because it all starts in childhood. No pressure, parents, but it is there. And we want to make sure that we are giving tools so that we can set healthy foundations for our children.
Alyssa?
Hello. Hi. First of all, Mona, hi. It's so nice to get to be here with
Hi.
you. And my name is Alyssa Blass-Campbell. I'm also a mom of two. I have a just turned 4-year-old and a 15-month-old. And I have a master's in early childhood. I did research in building emotional intelligence in kids, and I get to serve and support parents, caregivers, teachers with tools to raise emotionally intelligent humans. And I know so many of us didn't grow up with this. I didn't. I'm one of 5 kids in a small town in Western New York and didn't grow up with these tools in my household and had to learn a lot of them in adulthood. And I'm excited to get to walk along so many folks now and doing that right alongside you as we build our own toolboxes while raising theirs.
Amazing, thank you. So everybody on the call, if you feel comfortable, let us know where you are coming from. I'm in Chicago. I have a 3 and a 4-year-old, so feel free to put your kids' ages too. So we have a little idea of if we're a mostly toddler situation or a mixture of babies or everybody. So we're gonna keep this pretty conversational. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and I will be moderating the chat, and I'll stop Alyssa and Mona whenever something comes up that seems to fit. But we're gonna start talking about attachment and transitions. So, Alyssa, can you break down what attachment theory really means, and why is it so important that we think about how our kids experience change?
Yeah, for sure. So, attachment theory is the foundation for all of our work in emotional development, in that it sets the foundation for how you relate to humans around you and how you feel about your environment and safety in the world around you. In order for a child to feel safe and feel secure so that they can explore or separate from you or take risks, they have to feel confident that their caregiver understands how to meet their needs and keep them safe. And so, at the root of all of that is, how do they feel an attachment to you? Do they feel like you can meet their needs? You're going to be able to keep them safe? Great. Then they can go off and explore or take this risk because they know that if they weren't safe, you would stop them. And it doesn't mean that they don't feel fear still or experience worry or anxiety, but they know that we're a safe place to land to come back to when they're experiencing those hard things. And so when we're looking at attachment theory, we are looking at how we were raised, what our relationship to our parents, to our teachers, to our primary caregivers were, and then looking at how does that now form how we relate to other humans around us? How does it inform how we show up with our children? Brene Brown cites some research that under 7 years old, we're dependent on a caregiver to keep us alive. Not to say that if you drop like a 7-year-old in the wild, they're going to be like, I'm fine, but they will be able to like find some resources to hopefully help keep them afloat, maybe ask for help, find some food, etc. Whereas a baby literally cannot do that. They're dependent on us to keep them alive. And so their attachment to us is so crucial for their survival. When we're looking at attachment theory, that's what we're really looking at. And when it comes to how kids experience change, anytime there's unknown for us, something that feels new, our brain says, alert, 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 this is scary. Pay attention to this. It's not safe. And they turn to us as their caregiver to say, am I safe? Can I
Mhm.
navigate this? Can you help me navigate this? And that's where we're marrying the transitions and change with attachment.
Dr. Mona, from your perspective as a pediatrician, how does secure attachments help children feel safe during transitions, whether it's starting daycare, moving homes, welcoming a sibling, to getting shots? Like, there's probably so many things. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. I have a crying toddler behind me.
Oh,
So,
okay.
um,
We're all
so
parents here ready to
yeah,
help you.
doing this from home, right? Real
Yeah,
time.
right.
So I loved Alyssa's explanation of attachment, and transitions challenge that child's sense of stability, right? We talk about secure attachment being comfort, being routine, being something that they expect. A transition is not something a child will always expect, even if we prep them, right? Like, hey, we're going to get a shot or we're going to go to daycare today. Their brain is like, no, no, I'm supposed to be at home with mommy, or I'm supposed to, go here and do this. So, from a developmental and medical standpoint, this can activate their stress response, right? When they are dropped off to daycare, when they are, they have a new sibling all of a sudden that's taking the place of them, right? They're like, wait, I'm not used to this. So, secure attachment can act as a buffer. When a child trusts their caregiver, is consistent, attuned, their brain can better regulate this. And I'll get into some caveats of this. That's why small, predictable rituals can really help in these transition activities, or your calming presence will really help. So, a special goodbye phrase before heading to daycare, a reconnection moment after being apart. Because going back to what Alyssa mentioned, attachment isn't that you are there 24/7 with your child. If that's what you want it to be, great, but it's that it's predictable for most part of the time. So, for example, you leave, you come back. You leave, you come back. Kids will have separation anxiety. Them having separation anxiety isn't a bad reflection that you didn't provide them good, secure attachment. They will have that even with the most secure attachments. But when you return, you come back with a positive, happy smile. I missed you. I love you. Not, oh my God, you miss mommy. I hate leaving you. It's terrible. You are coming back into this reunion in a positive light. You are leaving with a small ritual. I love you so much. You are brave. I know this is really hard. And that's how they learn over time that this is not a dangerous thing. This is a secure thing. My parent thinks it's safe. So I will learn that it's safe too, and that I get to see them again, that I get to be reunited with them. It's also an important caveat to remember that a child struggling with a transition doesn't automatically mean that there's a problem with attachment. So kids process change based on their temperament, sensory sensitivity, developmental ages, or previous experiences. So I don't want parents to think that, oh my God, I think I'm raising the securely attached child, and now they will only cling to me, or they have trouble associating. It's very multifactorial, but it does help as a tool to have that secure base so that we, like Alyssa said, they can feel more comfortable leaving the nest and crawling away and walking away and look back to you like, oh, my parent or caregiver is here and I trust them. And that trust is part of that foundation.
When children face a big change, can you tell us what is actually happening emotionally and developmentally, like from a doctor's perspective, and what are some common reactions that us as parents should expect?
Yeah, so to understand what's going on in these big transitions, we need to look at how young children experience the world. They like predictability and they like connection, right? We talked about that. So they don't have the emotional tools or life experiences to make sense of big changes the way we do. Even us as adults struggle with big changes, right? Moving, sibling, like having another child. So think about how hard those big changes are for us who have a fully formed, hopefully, limbic system and prefrontal cortex. And now we have a child who is still developing those aspects of their brain, lacks emotional regulation skills, lacks the ability to have critical thinking skills like hopefully an adult would. And that can mean dysregulation. That can mean uncomfortability. And how can this manifest? Clinginess, separation anxiety, right? These are normal things. So they may suddenly become more attached. My daughter, we just went on a vacation and she would only want me and my husband the entire vacation. I thought that grandparents would be babysitting. No, mama, dada, the entire time. She has a secure attachment, but that is her way of processing new people, new environments, change in sleep changes. So clinginess or separation anxiety, sleep disruptions or regressions. We know that so many things can change sleep, but if a child is like starting school and all of a sudden you're noticing sleep disruptions or regressions, these can be tied together, and a lot of it is routine, consistency to get us back on track. Tantrums and regressions, similar to obviously having those bigger feelings. Control seeking behaviors. They might have more outbursts. They might want to say that 3-year-old will say, I do it. I want to do it. They're trying to find control in any aspect that they can because they feel out of control in other aspects. So a toddler who's welcoming a sibling may say like, I want to change the diaper. I do it, and start having meltdowns. And you're like, what the heck? You never cared about this. And this is developmental and a desire for control. And the last thing for me is for physical symptoms, which I see as a medical professional. Some children may start to complain of physical symptoms and not verbally tell you that they're having anxiety, worries, transitional issues. This could be withholding of poop. So they start having difficulty with potty training when they were completely potty trained. They could have withholding poop, more accidents. And the other thing is complaining that their tummy hurts and there's really nothing going on. There's no vomiting, there's no diarrhea, there's no constipation. They just constantly complain of the tummy hurting or headaches. So if we're seeing that there's been a major life change and they're having these somatic complaints of belly aches or headaches, it's really important that we rule out physical symptoms and physical conditions, but in the back of our mind, I'm always thinking, what's going on social emotionally? What's going on in this child's life? Because if I've ruled out constipation, stomach viruses, etc., I need to make sure, are we maybe dealing with a somatic complaint, a child dealing with an emotional manifestation of physical pain, which is something that we see a lot of in young children, especially school-age children and younger, because they may not be able to verbalize as better as a teenager or an adult would.
That's so interesting. I feel like I could just ask you questions myself about my 4-year-old.
You're like, hey, my kid's
Yeah,
complaining of tummy ache. Yeah.
yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Alyssa, can you tell some, like, all the parents probably want to know what's a normal transitional struggle and what's a sign that your child might need like more support and a little bit more help
Sure.
with that
Yeah,
stuff.
totally. As Mona, as you were talking, I was thinking of this story from Sage, my now 4-year-old. He's like 2.5, and he had just started a new childcare program. And I was driving him to school on the way there, and he was like, Mama, I'm going to be at school and I'm going to feel sad and I'm going to be all alone. And in my head, I'm like, I don't need this. I can quit this job, right? Like deuces, we can go home. We don't need to navigate this stuff. And instead, I'd like, whoo, Brax, what a preach. And I was like, hey, buddy, do you want to know what's so cool about feelings? None of our feelings stay forever. Remember yesterday when you were playing with Dada and you were up on his shoulders, you were playing that game, you were going back and forth, and you looked so happy and you were having so much fun. And right now you're not feeling happy and you're not having fun. Happiness doesn't stay for a long time. Sadness doesn't stay for a long time. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel lonely. They won't stay for a long time. You'll feel something else in a little while. And then we got to talk about when you are feeling sad and lonely, what is helpful when you're doing that? When you're at school and I'm not there, what's helpful when you feel sad or lonely? And have a little discussion about that. And then I dropped him off at school and went into the car and called my best friend Francesca and started sobbing and was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And she got to support me through it. And all this to say that the experience of, I don't want to separate from you, I'm doing something new, this feels uncomfortable, makes total sense. And if there was a world in which I could sign Sage and Mila up where they didn't have to experience hard things or ever feel sad or lonely, in a second, I would sign up. Like that is my dream as a parent, that they would never have to feel these hard things. And we know that that's not how emotions work. That's not how being alive works. We're going to cycle in and out of regulation and dysregulation. We're going to feel excited and happy. We're going to feel scared and nervous. We're going to feel calm and content. We're going to feel sad and lonely and embarrassed. We're going to cycle in and out of regulation and dysregulation all day long. And what we get to do with our tiny humans now is give them a space where they get to practice feeling these things without us just taking them away, right? My instinct in the car was like, I'll just take this away. We don't have to feel sad or lonely. We can prevent this. I will quit my job. We'll stay home together. You never have to feel this. And allowing them to practice feeling it is how they learn that they're secure in feeling it, that it really doesn't last forever, that they learn that I have felt sad before, I have felt lonely before, and I have the skill set to come in and out of this. When we're looking at this, if they are getting stuck in feelings where they can't come out, they can't co-regulate out, we're saying we drop them off at school and we hear that, yeah, all day long, they couldn't come back from this. Then we're going to put an additional plan in place. We're going to say, okay, outside of the pre-teaching maybe we're already doing, or the support that's offered at school, now we're looking at how do we help them learn how to navigate anxiety, how to come back to regulation when they're experiencing dysregulation. And when we're looking at that, we're going to start to see you'll see some of the psychosomatic stuff where there's my stomach hurts, I can't go to school, I don't feel good. That's one sign. Or that they really truly can't even co-regulate, where a teacher is there and holding space for them or connecting with them and they can't come back for it. Or we'll see this a lot. We're working with a little kiddo whose family's navigating a divorce, a separation. And for him, he is now not able to fall asleep at night with a lot of support. And so now we've brought in the medical team to help support his falling asleep, because once he is asleep, he can stay asleep. It's the falling asleep because everything feels so new. And so when we're seeing that it's affecting their ability to navigate the day, that's when we tap into additional supports. We might be looking at a medical team, we might be looking into additional therapy supports. We have another family we're working with where they're tapping into some occupational therapy supports to help the nervous system. So when they're not able to navigate the ebb and flow of feelings throughout the day and get through their day to day, that's when we're going to tap into additional supports.
That makes sense. Somebody asked in the chat, I've heard of snowplow parenting where
Yeah.
we remove all obstacles so kids don't have to deal with any challenges, risks, etc. But that it might harm kids in the long run because they don't develop skills for resiliency,
Exactly.
the unknown. What can you guys talk about or with that, or what's the
Sure. I
take?
mean, that falls, so much into the work that we do around raising emotionally intelligent humans. Emotional wellness isn't the absence of hard things, it's the ability to navigate hard things. And when we are in that snowplow parenting world, it's doing what my instinct was, right? Was to wrap him up in a bubble and just be like, you never have to feel something hard. That would be so beautiful. And the reality is they are going to, outside of us, feel hard things. We see this a lot with like parents stepping into school systems and wanting to make sure that a kid doesn't feel left out of something, or that this peer group is excluding them and we're going to step in and solve it for them, rather than helping the kid develop tools to navigate it and have a space with us to process and to turn to, but where we can become that leader for them in that safe space, not to step in and do it for them. We actually dive a lot into this in my next book.
And I think one of the most important things about that is, yeah, we cannot remove obstacles. There's just no way that we can do that. And it's not that we're putting obstacles in their way purposely, but we have to be able to guide them. And one of the biggest things that I see that is a huge harm is trying to deter those obstacles, like Alyssa said. And it goes back to that foundation, right? You need to know your child's emotional well-being. You need to know what they're capable of. You need to know how you can support them and be able to have those conversations to build that resiliency, right? Resiliency is not something they're going to just do. It has to be fostered. It has to be learned. And some people have it, some people don't, but it can be taught with example. And so it really is about, how are you resilient with things? How are you modeling things? You know, when you are dealing with struggle, when you are dealing with big feelings, that modeling is huge. and how are we going to get through those challenges together, right? Whether it's a peer excluding them, whether it's they're dealing with boredom, right? I think that's one thing that I really want to talk about more, which has not a lot to do with this topic, but it's so important, is that we have to let our kids be comfortable being idle. You know, we are in a tech generation where we're always doing and thinking and touching. Amazon comes to your door. We haven't taken our kids to the bank or had to have them wait in line. So it's about how can I incorporate boredom, stillness, that feeling that I'm in my head and I don't have something to fidget with all the time. How can I do that for my child so that they understand that there's not always going to be something to do, and that there's always, you know, going to be big feelings that can come with things, and I'm going to be there as that secure foundation to help you through it.
But also, Mona, like, how do we do that for ourselves, right?
I
Like, I
know.
just recently was like, Lucy, you don't need to like do your grocery order while you're going pee, right? Like,
Yeah.
leave the phone outside, like, just
Yeah.
stop. And I think for so many of us, we've gotten so used to doing something, having access to something. The idea of us being bored, I think, is something we need to practice too.
Yes, and I used to pride myself. I mean, I think, yeah, there was used to be a lot of pride about being able to multitask, right? Like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm a great multitasker. But as you get older and as you get more insight, you're like, it's actually not a, it's great, awesome that we can do some, but your brain should be able to focus on one thing. And after becoming a mom, I was like, this is not enjoy, like, yes, I can multitask, but my brain is going to forget things. And I started forgetting things, right? I would
Mhm.
multitask, but leave out details. Or like someone would tell me, hey, I need you to bring something. And I'm like, oh my God, I completely forgot. So being able to just be more present, mindful, you know, going back to that philosophy of like, things will get done, but you don't need to pee while you know, order things online. You don't need to,
100%.
you know, if so things can wait. And I think that triaging system is what I call it, of like, what's really needed of me now, or what can wait, and knowing how to use that way to create your schedule every day and every week is so useful, so that you don't feel like, well, dang. And like, also learning how to outsource. Exactly how medical system is run is like, you triage and then you utilize your team. How am I gonna, like, you know, utilize my nanny, utilize my husband? I don't have a nanny. Okay, well then I got to do it myself. What is the most important thing? Who needs me the most? What needs me the most? That's all stuff that I think we can model for our children, and then we can teach them as they get older.
Right. Forget birthing classes. We need that. Like they
Yes,
need to know how to do
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Um, that all the things you just said, I'm like, wow, 5 years ago, I would have really that would have been good because like the mistakes are all the time. My oldest daughter is always like, "Oh, did you forget again? Or did you, you know, whatever?" And I'm like, "Yeah, because I'm trying to do 95 things. I don't know."
Yes, I forgot again.
Yeah, right. So when a big change is coming, I guess, Mona, I'll start with you. When a
Mhm.
big change is coming, what are some ways that a parent can help prepare their child? Like first for the parent, I guess, starting point, and then for the child.
I love that. And you brought up exactly what I was going to start with. And this is probably part of the conversation that if you can take notes or come back and watch this section if you get the replay. But yes, the first thing is check in with how this affects you. So I use the example that travel makes me irritable. Even when I travel without children. And
Mhm.
so if you're going to be traveling, moving, like, you have to think what is making you uncomfortable, because you got to check yourself before you wreck everybody else. Okay, because if you are feeling irritable, if you're feeling unwell, if you're feeling like, I don't like this, it's going to come off. I mean, energy is contagious. People can say it's not, but it very much is. And especially as if you're the primary caregiver, the energy is even more contagious. So I say that because I am the primary caregiver, and if I'm angry or irritable, the entire house is all of a sudden irritable. It's very uncanny. And so you want to make sure that you are checking yourself and knowing your triggers, communicating if you have a partner of like, hey, tomorrow we're moving, or tomorrow we have to do this, or, you know, Ryan, my son, is starting school. It's going to be a big emotional day for me. I think I need some check-ins. Here's what I need. And that, just talking about it can really help you. And then now we go into the children. So preview the change through storytelling. So children really process the world through stories. So whether it's a book that you're reading, whether it's like a make-believe song that you make up of like, you know, that you're starting school, or, you know, we're going to move, or whatever the transition is, it's really nice to have this sort of imaginative play storytelling. And that way we can really open that child's imaginative brain up as to what they're feeling, have them ask questions if they're age appropriate to ask you questions, and just laying that foundation through storytelling, whether it's you making it or whether it's a book. Use play, like I mentioned. If you have like a favorite teddy bear, you know, like Bunny gets really sad when, he has to do this. And it's okay, Bunny. You can be sad. What would you tell Bunny if he's feeling sad? And then you kind of role play that way and let them get involved in that, let them cuddle with that bunny or, come up with what they would tell Bunny. And you're also in that process allowing yourself to see how they are reacting to that role play and also as they go through hard things, right? So this is not only just preparation, this is as they're dealing with it. So just say they had a really tough day at school, coming home and using play, using that conversation, using storytelling, using high or low. Like what was something that someone did that was really nice today? Or what was something that, you did something nice for somebody else? Like fostering that gratitude, fostering that conversation is going to really help. Things that also help is anything that can allow predictability, familiarity. So visual countdown. So if it's something like there's a calendar, my son gets really excited if we're going on a trip and he starts asking all these questions and he gets nervous and he's like, I want to pack my bag. And I started putting it on a calendar and drawing a little airplane. And then we count down the days of when that's going to happen or when he's starting kindergarten or, different things like a countdown calendar using timers if it's something just more cute like transitions from the park and things like that. And practicing the routine. So, if it's a child that's more sensitive to routine changes, practicing what it's going to look like, maybe packing the bag and then what it's going to look like to eat breakfast and then get out the door. So it's not that morning comes, you're stressed because you're trying to make the bell. You can actually practice it, maybe wake up a little bit earlier so that you can have extra time cushion so that you can get that sort of routine in there because that last concept of being rushed is not fun, and a child being rushed when they're overwhelmed is even more not fun because already they're dysregulated and upset, and now you're pushing them through a door. It's not really going to be good for anybody. So you're really trying to bring playfulness to the situation. You're trying to bring preparation to the situation. And I think of this like creating a soft landing. We're not avoiding the jump. It's going to happen. They have to transition. They got to do things, but we're making it less jarring, right? We're not avoiding the fact that they may have big emotions, but we're reducing the chance. And then the last thing is, what do we do after, right? Because it's not just about prep. It's like, hey, okay, after, we're going to talk about it. We're going to discuss the good that they did, not just well, I heard that you were crying when I dropped you off. You're going to say, hey, I heard that you were upset. But look at, you're doing really good right now. And I'm so proud of you. That was a big step that you took today to go to school and stay there. And I'm really proud. And you should be proud of yourself for doing this really exciting thing. And like building that in their cup so that they're like, wow, I am doing this awesome thing. My mom really loves me. And, she's there for me. And she may not be with me all the time, but that we get to have these moments together. And I'm busy. It's not hard to create meaningful time connections, right? You don't need to have 2 hours of meaningful connection. You need to have phones off, phones away, face to face, play, talk, bedtime routine. Just connect with your child as you know how to connect with them. And it doesn't have to be this, big production. It just has to be authentic to you and your child's relationship. And that can look different based on you and that child, because me and my son connect very differently than me and my daughter. My son is not a cuddler. My daughter is a cuddler. So my son likes to play. My daughter likes to just be quiet. And so knowing your child, going back to that is so key because it can really attune you to like what your child needs to feel that regulation again, to feel that sort of prep again. And that's why I give all these options because it could be one, it could be all of them, but you have to figure out what works best for your kid based on their temperament and their personality.
Right. Alyssa, once you're like in the weeds with a change and the messy middle, as they call it, what can you do in the moment to help your child feel more secure? Like if they are not even able to engage with
Sure.
like the play or the things that Dr. Mona was talking about.
Yeah, I want to back up just a little and toss in before the messy middle as we're like prepping. I like to think of this like if it was an adult. I saw a question in the chat box about an upcoming move for a kid. And just imagining if it's you and somebody came in and was like, okay, Alyssa, in 2 weeks, we're going to move to a new house. And this is the first you're learning about it. You know nothing else. You have no context for like, okay, what does it look like? Is what is going to be the same? What's going to be different? This is always something when we're navigating a transition that we cover with kids. What's going to be the same? What's going to be different? Here are some things that'll be the same. You're going to have your bed. You're going to have your bedroom that's all to yourself. Slothy is coming and going to sleep in your bed with you. Here's something that's going to be different. Instead of being on the one floor, we get to go upstairs to go to your bedroom. Do you want to look at some pictures? And so we're talking about like what's the same, what's different. And I really like to think of just ourselves as adults of if somebody dropped this information to you, what questions would you have? You might want to know like, is everyone in our household coming? Is this just a me move? Like, what is happening there? Where am I going to sleep in this new place? Where can I find things in there? Is my lovey coming or my security thing? Will I still get to see my friends and family? Am I going to the same school? Like all of that jazz of what's the same, what's different. And then looking at how you can involve them in the process. Like maybe we're going to have some cardboard boxes around and they're going to be seeing them. And so we get to talk to them about how we do this. We're going to pack up some things that are decorations in our house that we don't use every day. And we have to write on it so we remember what's in there. So when we get to our new house, you can help me open the box and figure out where do we want to put these things? Just helping them be involved in the process because they're going to see and hear a lot that people are talking about and not to them. So looking at what can we do to involve them in this process. And for folks who are interested in tiny humans in chapter 12, it's all about changes and transitions. And we have it broken up into different like hot ones, new sibling, move, new classroom, divorce, separation, etc., that guides you through all of these in depth and like questions to ask and things. But when we're in that messy middle of any transition, again, pulling back to you as the adult, what do you want to hear? I want to hear, oh man, this feels hard. Things are really different. We have been living in a way where we don't have all of our things available that we're used to having. Some things are still in boxes. This feels uncomfortable. And I miss our old house and knowing where things were in my kitchen or what was happening. And so being able to validate that it is uncomfortable and there's discomfort and it won't last forever. Did you know? And this is where I love to tell stories. Also, I've made up 7 billion stories to kids. It doesn't have to be a real one, but I'm going to make up something like, did you know? One time I was starting a new job. And when I went there, it felt so new. And I didn't know anybody at my new job. I didn't know where the lunchroom was. I was still learning all these things. And it felt really tiring for my brain. And then after about 2 weeks, I had a first friend and they showed me where the lunchroom was and I knew what to expect in my days. And then it started to feel less exhausting. My body felt safer. I felt calmer. I felt excited to go to my new job and be with my friend. And just making up a story to show them that this is all a part of it, that you are in the messy middle. It won't last forever. You've navigated this before. You can handle this, and that they get to be dysregulated. One thing to note about the messy middle is that you are going to see more meltdowns. You're going to see things like all of a sudden the orange spoon instead of the blue spoon is the end of the world. And it's not actually about the color of the spoon. It's that we're all just fried, right? My husband and I have a rule that in the first 3 months after having a new baby, there are just some things that get swept under the rug, like when I'm snappy and sarcastic and rude about something that, yes, somebody's taken our course. It's not about the chai, that I am going to like snap about something that is so minute and it's really not about that. It's that I'm exhausted and feeding a baby from my body and just have less capacity. And so when we're looking at this with kids, whether they're in a new school or they are moving to a new house, they have a new sibling, recognizing that their nervous system has less capacity. We think of the nervous system like a battery. And when we're at fully charged, we have all of our capacity. And all day long, every day, we are losing some of that jazz. And we're getting to that blinking red light. And when we are in the middle of a transition, we're almost never at fully charged. We're starting the day at less than fully charged because our brain's trying to make new connections and make sense of everything. Remember when we moved to this house that we're in now? even just having to use like Google Maps to go to locations that I knew before by heart that I wouldn't have to like use my conscious brain for. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait, how do I get to the grocery store from here? What's the best route to my kid's school from this house? Things like that, that all of a sudden I had to think about that before were a part of my subconscious. And anytime we got to use our conscious brain and think about things, it pulls from our nervous system. It drains us. It drains that battery. So just recognizing that we're going to see those meltdowns, we're going to see things on the surface that aren't really about that. And we get to say, yeah, but you really, really wanted the orange spoon. I'm going to help you get the orange spoon. And I'm just going to do more things for kids. For my kid who knows how to get dressed in the morning, I might help them get dressed just to expand their capacity. In the same way that there are days that I end and I'm like, could somebody please brush my teeth and put me to bed because I'm spent? Like, I'm going to do that for them. Do I know how to brush my own teeth? Of course. Do I know how to put myself to bed? Of course. But if somebody could please step in and do that for me sometimes, that would be lovely. And so I'm going to do that for kids, where I'm going to say, like, how can I help lighten their load when their brain is just like on fire in the messy middle?
Mm-hmm. That's such good advice. Um, so you've touched a little bit on it. We know that kids are not the only ones going through these transitions. As parents, how can we set ourselves up to be like steady and calm? Because I know moving for myself, like just the dynamic between my husband and I changes and it's like not it. And it's stressful and packing, we pack differently and we do things differently. And like we're not moving right now, but we could at some point, and my kids will see that. And like, what's the starting point for that?
I just realized I was muted. Okay, so when we are looking at the us part of it, first of all, understanding your nervous system, what regulates you, what dysregulates you. I'm regulated by proprioceptive input, that like big body play and touch. And so for me, if I can like ask for a hug at times, that's calming for me. I'm dysregulated by sound. Just the other day, we had folks over and there were a bunch of kids in my house. And Sage, my 4-year-old, popped in and said, Mom, you might want to put in your earplugs. Truth. Thank you. And like loop earplugs are my bestie. And so looking at like, how are you going to best resource yourself depends on how does your unique nervous system work? What drains you and what recharges you? My husband is drained by touch. And so for him, like he can get really touched out. If there's kids that are going to be on his body more because they're going to need that for regulation, that's going to drain him more. I will actually try and step in and have more of those where I'm going to wear my 1-year-old on my body because it's going to be regulating for me, it's regulating for her, and then she's leaving my husband alone a little bit more, and so that his nervous system can get that balance out as well. First and foremost, understanding what's regulating for us, what's dysregulating for us. And then recognizing that this is like the first 3 months postpartum, right? Where it's just like, I'm not going to be my most resourced. Love you so much. And for me, I've learned saying nothing is better than saying something a lot of the times in those moments where for us, like leaving, packing on a trip, I know that the last 2 hours before we're leaving the house, if I say anything, it's going to be finding all the ways that he's terrible in this moment, right? My husband, where like he doesn't know how to pack the car. He never thinks about anything. I have to carry all the mental load, which is not true in our everyday life. But in those last 2 hours, that feels so true. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I've learned I should say as little as possible. And I will say this to him. I will say, hey, would love to have that conversation right now. If I open my mouth anymore, it's not going to be kind. So we're going to circle back. And we have built this in the off moments where we can say like, hey, when I'm not as resourced, I cannot have conversations about things that don't feel pertinent to the situation. I just don't have the capacity. So having that discussion ahead of time for us is super helpful. And then knowing that sometimes we're just going to have to tap out. And a tap out can be 30 seconds where it's not like a trip to the spa. My kids aren't like, enjoy your trip to the bathroom while I stand outside right. and scream, Mom. It's literally like I'm in the bathroom. I have AirPods in. I'm listening to some music or a podcast that's going to be regulating for me. Hot tip, sound sensitive humans. If you are in control of the sound, it's regulating. If you're not in control, it's dysregulating. So listening to something that you choose could be regulating, and just like breathing and calming myself for 30 seconds. And sometimes it's me saying, hey, the kids are down. I'm going to do a solo run to the grocery store where I'm just going to leisurely walk the halls of the grocery store and not look around my house at everything that needs to be packed and happen, and maybe pick up something that sounds really delicious and not talk to anybody else for a minute, and I'll be back. Right. So, looking at like what are the little ways throughout the day that we can resource ourselves and be able to tap out.
Right. Mona, how do you see parents' emotional state like directly influencing their child as they experience change?
Oh, I see. I mean, we see this a lot in terms of just things in general that isn't even just big changes. And I think it's a good example to talk about. So, first is we have fussiness in a baby, right? I know that's not a big change, but we see that when a baby's crying in a nursery, that if another baby starts to, or if the baby's crying, other babies may start to cry. Crying is contagious. Emotions are contagious. The vibe in a house is very contagious. And what I mean by that, it's energy, but it's also emotional state, right? And think about also if your child goes to a birthday party and there's no cake involved, they're still going to be hyper, right? People think that it's the cake. It's not the cake, it's the energy. It's the fact that everyone's bouncing around. Things are very exciting. I know this because we had a fun day at our house without any sweets, and my children were bouncing off the walls with their friends. And I'm like, this is not a sugar high. This is just life, right? We know energy is contagious, and that goes with emotional state as well. Now, in terms of, how it can impact changes, we talked about how predictability is very useful for children, right? If we have a very volatile emotional state as a parent, what I mean by that is that a child can't predict how we're going to respond. It's going to be very confusing for a kid, right? So let's say you have a parent who is very does a lot of yelling but is also very very sweet, right? So you have a parent who yells, who hits, and then all of a sudden is like, I love you, you're the best kid ever. That is actually very confusing to the child, even if they may not realize it yet, because there's no predictability in how you're responding, right? So it's really important to kind of say, how am I responding to situations in general? Because that's how they're gonna look at, big changes as well, because they're, big life changes, they're gonna look to you for predictability. They're gonna look to you not only for how you respond, but also just how you respond to them and their reactions as well. So that is really important. And it doesn't mean that we can't show emotions as parents. It's actually very healthy if you have normal, healthy emotions. Now, if you are dealing with being a yeller, if you are dealing that you are always crying in front of your kid, we may need to do some soul searching to figure out, well, what is going on with you? But I'm talking like the one-offs that you sometimes yell, you sometimes cry in front of your kid. Them seeing how you respond to that, just like Alyssa said about the moving, right? This is really hard for me. I am feeling, when I started that new job or when I had to move, I felt really sad. That is really useful. Kids of all ages like to hear that the person that is responsible for taking care of them relates to them, meaning that they are not some superior figure that doesn't connect, that they understand what they're going through. And how do we understand what we're going through? By relating to them. And storytelling is actually okay. People sometimes think, well, if I start telling them about my stories, then they're going to feel like, well, now why do they turn it on themselves? You are keeping the attention on that child's feeling, but you are bringing a situation and then reconnecting it back. I had to move when I was a kid, and I remember I missed my house a lot. And that was something that was really hard for mommy when she was your age. And, my mom, Nani, which is what we call grandma, was really great about, talking to me about it. And I'm going to do the same thing for you. And we're going to get through this together. And how are you feeling about it, right? Like you can connect and relate to your child through storytelling. And like Alyssa said, make it up if you need to make it up, but you will have those stories. You've probably gone through big changes in your life. And if you haven't, you can just connect with them how you see fit. But this is going to be really useful for the child because not only is it going to be good for them, it's going to be useful for you. Because like I said, many times we get in our feels and talking about it really helps. And talking about with a child can also really help. And now you have this little mini therapist that is not going to tell you what to do, but just because you were able to talk to them and say, I felt that way too. And that was really hard for me, but I got through it. You're going to realize that you're resilient because you are. And you're also going to show your child that they're going to learn resiliency without even saying the word, because that they're going to get through something that was difficult and that you are always going to be there. Someone had asked in the comment section about, snowplow parenting. One of the parenting styles that I have really learned to love because I think there's so many out there and I don't like to tie myself to any, is lighthouse parenting. And this is a new one that I learned about in the last year. And I was like, this is it. This is what I've been telling everyone. And now it has a name and I'm so grateful. Lighthouse parenting is exactly what it talks about, right? That you are always guiding them home. And home is not literally your home all the time. Home is that safe space that they feel that they can always come back to you and feel secure, whether it is starting daycare, whether it is moving to a new house, whether it is a new sibling, that there is a open conversation, there is a safety net there. And we build that safety net by having reliability in our emotions, right? Not having this emotional volatility all the time. We build that comfort by having trust in our actions. So if we say something, whether it's from boundary setting or not, that we follow through, our kids are looking. Like if you are the type of parent that's like, you know what? You can have a cookie and then you don't give them a cookie. They remember that kind of stuff. You want to be able to be that parent that follows through with your word. And so that they know that they can trust you when you are giving them a promise, but that they will also more likely respect you when you are holding a boundary, because they know that you are a woman of your word or a man of your word because you are trustworthy. And that respect that I said, the respect is two-way. We tend to think that if a child's going to listen to us and feel secure with us, that they have to only respect us. You got to respect your child. And that means understanding their feelings, understanding what they need, respecting them. If they say, "Mommy, no hug." Okay, I don't need to give you a hug right now, but I'm here if you need me. There's so many little ways that we can show respect. And these are all ways that we create that sort of safety net. And one last comment about this is that parents often get worried in my office that all these small things that we deal with are causing their kid toxic stress or emotional trauma. I really want us to remember that these are all life experiences. These are not emotional trauma. Emotional trauma is very heavy. Physical abuse, heavy emotional abuse, nothing that I think anyone in this community is doing right now because they're tuning into this conversation. Living with domestic violence. I mean, they are very heavy things that me as a pediatrician, I've had to learn because this is toxic stress. And by and large, these little things, moving, starting school, all these things, these are very normal life experiences. These are not toxic stress. Your child is not going to feel, disconnected or have in unhealthy, secure attachment when you are connecting with them after these incidences, talking with them. That is something that I want to remind you that it is all about the prep. It's all about getting through the messy middle, like Alyssa mentioned, but it's also about the reconnection and the discussion, which is a lifelong thing as a parent. It never ends. It just shows up differently through every stage.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that. I love that acknowledgement, Mona, that it's tolerable stress, not toxic stress,
Yeah.
and that it's so important. One thing we get a lot of questions about is our feelings and how to share them. And there's a difference between adults experiencing hard emotions and kids feeling responsible for regulating an adult experiencing hard emotions. That if they feel like it's their job to get calm for you, or that they're bad and that's why you're doing it, is different than you experiencing something hard and saying, "Whoo, I'm feeling overwhelmed." And being able to, even if it's after the fact, that one of our favorite phrases in our household is what we're still learning. And we use it for all of us in our house of, "Man, earlier when we were coming in from outside, I was feeling overwhelmed. It was almost lunchtime. Your sister had to nap. Everybody was crying and I wasn't kind to you. I'm still learning what it feels like in my body when I'm overwhelmed so that I can be calm and take care of you. I'm sorry. I love you." And then we move forward. And I get to keep working on that. And we talk about it with everybody, to the point where he was bit at school the other day and we were talking about it. And he was like, "Oh, she's still learning how to say she wants space," right? That like they will tie this into all the other spaces, but letting them know that I have hard feelings. I feel overwhelmed. I feel scared. I feel sad. I feel frustrated. And it's my job to navigate my own regulation. It's not yours to do that for me. I'm responsible for mine. And sometimes that means I'm walking away into the bathroom and closing the door and taking deep breaths because it's my job to get calm for me. Sometimes it means I'm staying there and saying, "Whew, before I help you, I need to calm my body. I'm going to pull my shoulders up to my ears and drop them down. I'm going to squeeze my hands and let them go. I'm going to count backwards from 10, and then I'm going to listen to your question." And letting them see us model that regulation in real time lets them know that they're not responsible for our regulation. We are.
Mhm. we just got a new puppy, and my youngest just introduces him as Bear and then says he doesn't know any better. Like that's
Yeah.
he like thinks that's like his middle name or something. She's
That's
like
so cute.
Bear, and he doesn't know it because he's,
I love it.
fighting or whatever. But the same learning we're learning together. But I think she's gonna say this is Bear, and he doesn't know any better. And he's gonna be like 11, like walking around doing nothing wrong. But that's all so helpful. So we only have a little bit of time left. I want to make sure we get to some of the questions. I could listen to you guys talk all day long.
I love talking with Alyssa.
I
We've
was
done
just saying, I can
podcasts
hang
on
with
each
Mona.
other's.
Yeah.
It's so
It's
great.
incredible. You guys have both have very like similar perspectives, but
Yeah.
different ways. It's amazing. So talk to everybody first, I think, about regulating your first child with a new sibling, or your middle child with a new sibling. And then I think there's some worries about changing schools also. So those big two changes, and moving.
You want to go first, Mona, and then I'll do
Yeah, we
changing
can do,
schools?
yeah, we'll do this. I'll do the siblings first, and if you want to add anything. So, one
Sure.
of the biggest things, so I saw the question is how do you help a kid regulate in the presence of a new sibling, especially if they're getting physical? Now, there's two answers to this. One, if there's two caregivers or if there's one, because I want to be very like relatable here that I've been in a situation where it was only me. So now if there's two caregivers, the ideal situation here is one caregiver is going to tag team and take the other kid and just help them regulate. What we do not want to say is stop being a baby. You need to calm down right now. You don't understand, because you got to put yourself in their shoes. They are just reacting as they know how to react because they're young. So you can say, hey, I know you're feeling upset. If you do not have time to spend time with the older sibling, because just say you're feeding, which I have been in that situation where I was feeding my daughter and my son is having a meltdown. I literally told him, I love you so much. Right now, I'm feeding your sister. Do you want to come sit next to me while I give you a hug? Or do you want to take a moment? And he just came and sat next to me, cried in my shoulder while I fed my daughter. And so you gotta, again, figure out in the moment with your resources what you want to do. If your older child is getting physical, you obviously need to protect the baby. So that is a non-negotiable boundary. You can be upset, but you are not to hit, right? And so in that moment, it's about physically removing what you need to do, not explaining so much of like, don't do this and do that, helping them come down from that dysregulation, from that hitting. If you need to give them a big hug and say, I know you're feeling really upset. I'm just going to give you a big hug right now so that you can feel better and calm yourself in my arms. I'm here for you, and just let them collapse into you. And then usually with that comes the because they finally just feel that release. You can do that. But I wanted to give you guys a quick response based on if you're alone or solo.
Mhm.
Yeah, cool. I will add for the big kid. Often we have this idea that if we give attention to it, we'll see more of it. And what we end up doing is ignoring the need that's driving the behavior when we do that. That if we ignored bad behavior and expected it to go away, that would have already been working over the decades of doing that, and it isn't. And so when we're looking at this, we want to support that baby, right? I'm going to move them to a safe space or tend to them for a second. And I will say, oh, I won't let you hurt your sister. Also, same. I have a 4-year-old and a 15-month-old and have lived this. And I won't let you hurt your sister's body. I'm going to give her a snuggle. I'm going to put her in a safe space. And actually, who needs me most right now is him. So then I'm going to turn to him and say, oh, man, you're overwhelmed, or you really wanted my attention. I'm going to help you, bud. And now I'm supporting his nervous system regulation. We do sensory system support first, where we help them get into a regulated body. Sometimes this is holding space for them. Sometimes it's holding them. It's going to depend, again, on your child's nervous system, not one size fits all. And then we'll move into emotional regulation, where I'm going to be able to pop up and validate their feelings and hold space for them and help them process emotions. And then language and communication, where we're going to move into, okay, if you want my attention next time, what could you do? You could come and you could pull on my shirt, or you could say, Mama, play. And depending on where they are developmentally, we would give them a yes. And it doesn't mean that the next time they're going to come over and be like, Mama, play. And you're going to be like, woohoo, one time this worked. Great. They're going to get to practice this and give you lots of opportunities to practice this and your response to them. But I'm really just turning and saying, I won't let you hurt their body. And then supporting the kid who needs me most. It's the triage Mona was talking about earlier, that it can feel like now it's the baby that needs me most, but really the kid whose nervous system's out of control is who needs me most. Uh, yeah. Then we had what, school transitions?
Yeah, moving to a new school.
Yeah. So moving to a new school, there's the like what and when is often what we hear the most questions about. What do we talk about and when do we talk about it? So the when depends on your unique child. I have two kids who are vastly different. One who wants about 2 weeks of prep time for something, where like the more information he has, he feels comfort in that. And then one kid who, if she knows stuff too far in advance, she feels anxious about it, where she like ruminates, right? And so for her, knowing something's going to happen like a couple days in advance, and then as she gets a little older, probably about a week in advance, will be her sweet spot. For him, I could tell him at the beginning of the summer, hey bud, we're going to start a new school, let's read a picture book about it, I'm going to show you some pictures on my phone. When Sage started his last school, I just asked the teachers, I was like, can you just snap pictures around the classroom and send them to me? And it doesn't have to be exactly the way it's going to be, but can you just send them over to me? And they sent me an email, and we looked at them 7 billion times and just talked over and over about like, I wonder what you'll do in this space. What's going to happen over here? I noticed there's blocks there. I wonder what you'll build. Just helping him start to like orient himself in that space. So the first day he shows up at that school isn't the first time his brain has ever seen this space, where it then feels more familiar and not just like, whoa, this is all new. And got to see pictures of his teacher and talk about her. I wonder what she likes. Oh, there's a dog in that picture. I wonder what her dog's name is. And have conversations just about the space he's going to go into. But the when will depend on your tiny human, and you know them best. So knowing like, do we do it a week in advance? Do we do it 2 weeks? Am I a beginning of the summer kid where you're going to want more and more information? And then the what, we're going to prep them with the timeline. I love Mona's example of the calendar with the airplane, like same thing with the calendar with the school. Here is the day, first day we're going to go to school, and they can see here's what today is. You can do like a paper chain countdown. You could do something where you're crossing it off. You can draw something on a piece of paper. It does not have to be fancy to be effective. And you're really just helping them know what's tomorrow. Because for tiny humans, I taught preschool, pre-K, mixed 3s and 4s. And we would do weekend news every Monday. And my 3-year-olds would come in and they would share the same exact thing for the first half of the year, where it was like, I went to the zoo, whatever. And like, they didn't go to the zoo every Saturday, but they would just think of something they'd done in their life, because time, the concept of time is developing still. And then my 4-year-olds would start to be able to say, oh, I went to so-and-so's birthday party. They could recall something that happened that weekend, but that's a skill that takes a long time to develop. So when we're using these visual aids, it's really because their concept of time is not where ours is. If I say something's happening in a week, you have a general concept of time around that. They have no idea what that means. So the visual aid piece is super, super helpful. And then, looking at pictures, if at all possible, of where they're going to be going, just talking about it, even if you don't have concrete answers, brainstorming, asking them, what are you curious about? What are you wondering about? You can drive by a school, etc.
And I imagine that's very similar for moving as
Yeah,
well.
so I was just gonna say, I'm like, that is literally the format. If you are able to physically go visit the new place, we've moved twice with Ryan, my son. It's great to go physically, but if you know exactly what she just mentioned with the pictures, one thing that found really helpful for moving was allowing my son to have control, a sense of control, which we talked about, which was allowing him to pack his own stuff like in a own bag. But the really big rule on that is make sure you have it on you and that you don't put it in the truck and it gets lost. So like make it like, okay, we're gonna pack your backpack and everything that you want is gonna go in your backpack. Like, just of course you're gonna pack everything, but like really exciting things, right? And allow him or you to carry that or whoever it is. But yeah, little piece of advice: don't put it on the truck, which we did not do. But I imagine that would have been like a meltdown central. Like, where did my bag go?
Yeah, right.
Really, from you would have been melting down.
Yeah,
like,
right,
where is
exactly.
that
Like,
bag?
where's the box, right? But that can really help. And of course, cross country moves, bigger moves, you may not be able to, but again, in the carry-on that you're taking on the flight or whatever, like allow that sense of control. Allow when you get to that new space, make it similar in some ways where they get to pick out their bedding. You know, if it's a new space, it may be it may be hard the first few nights, and also the tips may depend on the age of the child, right? Like an older child, you can maybe talk to them a little bit more about what to expect. A toddler may be like, what the heck is this? You got to figure out, okay, how are we going to do this, because they may not understand as much. But a lot of it is consistency. repetition on how you approach, and also just creating familiarity if we can, and then rolling with the punches when we don't have everything planned out, because that's parenting.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I want to be cognizant of everybody's
Yes.
time, but this was amazing. I would love to ask you guys questions for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
But that brings us to the end of today's conversation. I hope everybody is leaving with a deeper understanding and some tools to support your child and yourself through transition. So thank you so much, Mona and Alyssa. You guys are experts, and sharing your wisdom is, we're all so grateful. So thank you everybody for being a part of this conversation. At Augie, we're here to support you every step of the way, from newborn days to the big kid years. So join us in the app, and we'll see you guys again soon. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you. Thank
Bye.
you.